Welcome, welcome, welcome to Why Wellness Matters. My name is Cynthia Pyle Manley, and I'm your host, and I am thrilled that you are here. It is January 2nd, 2025, and I still can't believe that I'm saying 2025. I'm a millennial, so, you know, I grew up on movies like The Terminator, um, and various other action movies that challenge the space-time continuum. And it is kind of crazy that we're in 2025. What's even crazier is that you're here with me um, for the first episode of my first podcast. I'm so excited and I'm so thrilled to be arriving to this moment. And I'm grateful that you're here. The purpose of this podcast has been honestly on my heart for a very long time. I am a wellness practitioner. I've been practicing yoga, meditation, and mindfulness for over 15 years. I'm also an instructional designer, a leadership coach, and a strategist with the federal government. And I feel so privileged to be able to blend mindfulness and intentionality habits and essentially positive psychology with leadership and development and human-centered design and helping organizations be more intentional and adopting a growth mindset and helping individuals find their blind spots and be more inclusive in their leadership. And I arrived at the podcast format to sort of download all of this information for you all because I don't want to keep it to myself. I have to let it out. I have to, deposit these seeds so that others can grow and thrive as well. I feel really passionate and really called to do that. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. Let's get into the tools. So it's a new year, a natural time to pause, reflect, and look ahead. So this podcast episode is actually entitled Energize Your New Year, Mindfulness, Intention, and the Power of Positive Thinking. So let's be honest. How often do we set ambitious goals only to feel drained and overwhelmed, sometimes before we even get started? Today, I'm going to invite you to flip the script and focus on the intentionality piece first. Understand and gain clarity around your deeper why. Why do you want to change these behaviors? Why do you want to change those habits? And help use that to ground you in the motivation to continue on through 2025 and beyond. So, this episode is all about energizing yourself for the year ahead, mindfulness, intentionality, and the power of positive thoughts, shifting maybe your mindset that might be around scarcity, might be around fear. There's a lot of change going on in this world as we speak. So, it's actually very natural, neuroscience wise, to feel a little bit confronted and limited by external circumstances that are around you. But the power that we have, and I'd like to invite you to consider an empowerment dynamic of the sphere of influence in which you can control. And that is your thoughts. It begins with you. It begins with your thoughts. And I'm going to keep driving that home. No matter what, you've got you. And you have control over the mindset, and you have control then over your behaviors, and you have control over your environment. You do. It's not Pollyannish, and I'm going to give you the tools and resources for you to uncover that for yourself and for that to feel really real for yourself. But by the end of this episode, you'll walk away with practical tips and exercises to fuel your body, mind, and spirit. So let's get started. First, let's talk about reflecting on some of the blockages for your energy. So, before we talk about boosting the energy, we got to look at what's causing the discomfort, what's causing the fear, what's causing the trepidation. So, if you're not driving or walking, maybe if you're walking, you can still ask yourself these questions and reflect on some of these questions. I love to use the Notes app in my phone when I'm walking and maybe listening to a podcast. So I invite you to do so. So ask yourself these questions. Where did my energy feel stuck or depleted in the last year? So just doing a little inventory, thinking about, the different quarters of your life in this winter, in the spring, in the summer, and in the fall. Were there specific instances where you felt that your energy was being either stagnant or depleted? Now, consider what people, habits, or situations were present that were actually contributing to that feeling of being drained. And the third question I'd like you to reflect on is, what moments or activities actually gave me energy and joy? So what felt nurturing, what felt like it was giving back to me and allowing me to experience a sense of joy and fulfillment. So now that you've taken that inventory, I want us to, really get grounded in that by doing a breathing exercise. So the whole purpose of this is often we focus so much on adding new goals that we forget to release the things that no longer serve us. Mindfulness invites us to notice without judgment, emphasis on without judgment. Judgment is never our friend. Discernment is always valuable. So there is a distinction between judgment and discernment. Judgment sounds critical. If you're listening to that internal narrative, it's like, how could you? What were you thinking? You should have done better, etc. Discernment is looking at the facts from a neutral standpoint. This is what happened. This was the result. This is how I felt. Discernment feels like data collection as opposed to an analysis or an assessment, right? It's just looking at the facts from a neutral standpoint. So, judgment versus discernment. It's actually a tool that I use quite frequently, and I'll probably refer back to several times the more we spend time together. So excited about our time together. So, but first, let's release what is no longer serving us, okay? So, again, if you're driving, this probably isn't for you. Bookmark this podcast, come back to it. But if you are able to pause and take a moment and sit back in your chair, close your eyes, relax your face, and we'll do a short breathing practice. So take a wide breath in, inhaling to the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now exhale for 6 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And repeat. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And again, inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And release the effort from the breath. Allow your breath to return back to normal. Keeping the eyes closed for just another moment or two. Soften your body. Reflect on those questions. Where did you feel stuck? What were the circumstances? Who were the people? What were the habits? What were the situations? We're going to release that right now. So place one hand over your heart and take a wide breath in, the widest breath that you've taken all day. Inhale all the way to the top of the lungs through the nose. And sigh it out. Exhale. Slowly begin to flutter the eyes back open, return back into your space. And we'll keep on going, right? So now that we have identified the blockages and we've identified what we need to release, let's think about how to energize ourselves through that intentionality piece, the piece always focused on the why. So intentionality is like the compass for your energy. Where your focus goes, your energy flows. It's almost like if you're driving a car and you ever look to, sometimes if you look at the cars coming, you notice that you start to drift over a little bit. It's because you've changed your focus. And so even without meaning to, your intention kind of goes that way, and you start to swerve a little bit out of your lane, right? So uh, this is a perfect example of where your focus goes, your energy flows. So making sure that we're really grounded in where we want our focus to be and not to be distracted or sort of caught off guard when circumstances come into our view that sort of knock us off of our focus. And that's naturally going to happen. But with mindfulness practices that are really supportive, and once you start to become really grounded in them, it's easier for you to regain your focus. It's easier for you to, maybe you don't swerve totally out of that lane, just slightly. And then the more you practice, the better it becomes and the less distracted you become. So this year, instead of a long list of resolutions, consider setting an intention. An intention is more about how you want to feel or show up rather than what you want to do, right? It's more about being rather than doing. So instead of saying, for example, I'll exercise every day, your intention might be, I choose to honor my body with movement that feels joyful. I'm going to say that again, right? I really want this to land. Instead of saying, I'll exercise every day. First of all, exercising every day is not, at least for me, it's not an attainable goal. I have two small children. I work a full-time, very, demanding job. Working out every day is just not realistic. But instead, right, your intention might be, I choose to honor my body with movement that feels joyful, right? So what is within my ability, what is within my control is to take a walk every day, or to practice. Maybe it's not in my ability to actually go to a yoga class, but maybe I can do a few sun salutations the first time I wake up, right? Maybe I commit to 10 Surya Namaskar A's or sun salutations. And doing that is still a joyful way to move my body, right? So, again, beginning with the why in mind helps us to set up behaviors and habits that are more honoring to what our intention is. By way of another example, maybe you're leaning more towards a professional goal, right? So instead of saying, I'll get a promotion this year, maybe your intention might be, I'll approach my work with curiosity and courage, right? Or I'll approach my work with growth and persistence in mind, or I'll approach my work with a learning mindset, right? So also noticing sometimes all money ain't good money, right? So like if you want to get a promotion, that's amazing. Like I think that everybody should be paid what their value is. I do feel very strongly about that, right? But if you're working in a job, maybe you're making the money that you want, but you don't feel fulfilled, you don't feel joyful, you don't feel empowered. And so that's why starting with the why in mind is so important, because oftentimes we can sort of set up these um, a- ambitious goals. Nothing wrong with being ambitious, but they're sort of arbitrary in a sense. And that's why we don't fulfill them by the end of the year because we don't feel connected to them. So now's an opportunity for us to start, right? So let's set one intention together. Think of one word or phrase that captures the energy you want to embody this year, right? Just one word. It could be peace, it could be growth, courage, lightness, patience. I'm working on my patience. Curiosity. I'm also working on authenticity. And I think courage in the face of this really strong desire to show up authentically, right? So, whatever that might be for you, whatever phrase or word, it could be a phrase, it could be, encompass a couple of things. But again, what do you want to embody this year? How do you want to feel? Who do you want to be? How do you want to serve? Right? So write that down somewhere visible and let it guide your decisions and actions and mindsets. If you don't already have a vision board, I highly encourage you to set one up in your workspace. It doesn't have to be elaborate, right? I actually like to use Post-its a lot because they're agile and you can move them around and, update them, switch them out. And I always have Post-it notes near me somewhere in a Sharpie where I can write down, words, phrases that inspire me and that embody who I want to be. So put that up in your space. The most important thing is that it's somewhere visible, right? All right, so let's also talk about positive thoughts as a fuel to help you keep going throughout the year. So, did you know your thoughts are the most renewable source of energy that you have? Positive thoughts aren't about ignoring challenges or pretending everything is perfect. They're about shifting your focus to what's possible. So, I'm also certified in a coaching technique and practice called positive intelligence. Positive intelligence is not toxic positivity. It is about looking at your circumstances from a perspective of discernment rather than judgment. We all have a judge, we all have a self-critic, and although some call it the ego, right? And although that critic and the ego has supported us and has given us a lot of it has protected us, it it is a core foundation to our identity. Sometimes it can sabotage us and sometimes it can get in the way of our progress and our growth. So it's important to be mindful of that. It's important to be self-aware when the judge or the critic is having too much influence over our way of being. I actually read a Harvard study that said 80% of our thoughts are negative. And that is frankly just a function of our neurobiology, right? I'm a little bit of a neuroscience junkie. Would never call myself a neuroscientist, but the more I learn and the more I research neuroscience is just so fascinating. So our bodies our brains rather are designed to help us perform or to protect us. So think about when we were hunter gatherers, right? Our survival really depended on our ability to protect ourselves or to perform, and that stage of our lives, or that stage of evolution, if you believe in evolution, is that um you had to perform, you had to store up grain, you had to hunt and get the resources that you needed to survive. So it's all about survival mentality. And in positive intelligence, we actually call that the survival part of the brain, right? And it's not going anywhere. That's the thing. So it's not going anywhere. But that doesn't mean that um, we can't acknowledge it. We can't challenge some of the assumptions that the survival brain might be asserting. It doesn't mean that we can't engage with that survival part of our brain from a place of loving kindness, right? So that's where some of the compassion tools start to come in and help us, have a little bit more empathy for our situation or be a little bit more curious about our situation. So these are what we call the sage powers of positive intelligence: empathy, curiosity, innovation, keeping that laser sharp focus, as we talked about before, not being swayed by external circumstances that would otherwise knock us off of our square. So I can't emphasize enough how much our thoughts dictate our internal environment for sure, but also our external environment. So, if you want to, it's too much for me to unpack. Positive intelligence is too much for me to unpack in one episode, but we will talk about it more in the future. And if you're interested in having a one-on-one coaching session with me around positive intelligence, I would be honored to support you in that way. It really is a practice. It's not mastery by any sort. But happy to support you in that learning. So, but I do want to give you some tools that you can use and put into practice right away around positive thinking. So here's a simple but powerful practice, and it's called the 3 gratitudes exercise. Every morning, write down 3 things you're grateful for. They can be big things or they can be small things. I love to consider and I like to bring sensory awareness into my gratitude practice as well. So just feeling the warmth of the covers before I actually come out of the bed, feeling the softness of the covers and against my skin, and how supported I feel underneath the mattress. I mean, there are people in the world who don't have these things. I mean, let's be honest, there are a lot of people who are hurting in this world. And the fact that you have a warm place to sleep where you feel safe is a blessing. It is something to be grateful for. Um, I also express gratitude for my husband, for the loving, warm heart that is next to me, for my children, for my brain, for my ability to think rationally. There are a lot of people who are still on that journey to being able to organize their thoughts a little bit better and build tools that help them feel resourced in the way that they think, right? So I'm just so grateful for my body. I'm grateful to be able-bodied, right? And so understanding the privilege that you have is a great way to tap into that gratitude. Some other ways that you can tap into gratitude uh, is well, the importance of tapping into the gratitude is to train your brain to notice the good, right? So it is we're creating new neural pathways to train your brain to recognize the good. Like I said, 80%, based on that Harvard study, 80% of our thoughts go towards the negative. So we have to train the brain to see the good. Sometimes you've heard of rose-colored glasses. Well, these could be poop colored glasses, if you will, right? And so we have to but in doing this repeatedly over time, we are actually creating new neural pathways to positivity, which builds resilience and increases your motivation, and again is the energy that helps you get out of bed feeling motivated, feeling energized, feeling joyful. So you can also pair this with affirmations that might sound something like, I am capable of achieving my goals, or I have the energy and clarity to move forward, or possibly I'm creating a year filled with purpose and joy. So pairing these affirmations with the sensory awareness of feeling grateful. So you're feeling it literally, quite literally, feeling the sensation of gratitude in your body and then connecting it cognitively with the affirmations of positivity. Again, I'm capable of achieving my goals. I have the energy and clarity to move forward. I'm creating a year that is filled with purpose and joy. And you notice how these statements are so empowered, right? I am capable. I am. They're self-focused because your sphere of influence really just starts with you. And it helps you to stay grounded and rooted in that truth. So, in addition to the mindful, energizing practices, let's talk a little bit about how to sustain that energy throughout the day. So, morning rituals are beautiful. We can start each day with this grounding practice. You could spend 5 minutes rather of meditation, gentle yoga, journaling, to set that up for your day. Again, I told you that I have two small kids. So some days are better than others. Set intentions that are, and set up your morning ritual in such a way that is realistic for you, right? So sometimes my morning ritual, I'm still laying in bed. I'm using the notes app in my phone to journal. I'm praying in bed and doing my meditation in bed because that is where I feel grounded and that's where I feel um, psychological safety. Um, it doesn't make sense for me to start getting the kids ready and start getting breakfast ready. I'm At that point, I'm in my survival brain, right? I'm starting to, the adrenaline is starting to ramp up, the cortisol is starting to ramp up. So it's so important that you do this before taking care of others and before certainly before reaching for your phone and checking your emails, right? So we want to stay in the sage perspective first thing in the morning and thinking about all of the things that are going to be nurturing for you: curiosity, courage, compassion, creativity, confidence, right? Beautiful. Okay, so in addition to the morning ritual, you're also going to want to have some energy check ins. So throughout your day, build in time to pause and ask yourself, how's my energy right now? What do I need? It might be a glass of water, it might be a stretch, or simply a moment to breathe. And think about what environment you need for that to be the most conducive, right? So I personally don't like my water to be room temperature. I always like to have cold, fresh water. So my water drinking practice looks a certain way, right? Also, in order for me to stretch, I need space, right? I need to have comfy clothes on. I have to have clothes that will allow me to move my body freely. So, setting up your life in such a way that you can quickly grab for these energy check ins when you need them, quickly grab for that glass of water, quickly just lay down on your back and stretch your lower back, for instance. I know I have a lot of tightness in my lower back. So, know which poses you're going to go to, whether it be a child's pose or a supine stretch, or, what is it that your body needs? And so that you can quickly go towards it. Have that breathing practice set up for yourself. So maybe it's an app. I know a lot of people subscribe to the Calm app. Maybe there's a 5-minute meditation that you can reach for. I love emotional freedom tapping. I can't emphasize enough how much I use EFT. It's called emotional freedom tapping, and we can talk about that in another episode. But that is one of my go-tos when I feel like my my nervous system is out of whack and I need to access my parasympathetic nervous system. Love tapping. It's where you tap on different energy points and using affirmations to actually help you activate to calm your nervous system and to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So, mindful movement. So physical activity. It doesn't have to mean hitting the gym. Although I also want to emphasize that breaking a good sweat is also very therapeutic, right? Um, we can talk about completing the stress cycle, right? So, if you're familiar with the fight, flight, or fleet, fight, flight, or freeze, not fleas, freeze. That's a different podcast episode, fleas. Um, so fight, flight, or freeze, and also fawn. There's a fourth F, which is fawn. And we can talk about that more in a separate episode. But sometimes you actually have to run. You actually have to break that sweat in order to signal to your body that you're safe, right? So that's why people love kickboxing classes. That's why people love to run, 5Ks and 10Ks. I am people. If I had more time, I definitely would be breaking more of a sweat, right? And actually, that's one of my goals for the new year. And again, notice this is so beautiful, right? So just notice where I didn't say, hey, I want to go to the gym every day or I want to go to the gym 3 times a day. But my intention is to break a sweat so that I can calm my nervous system so that I can complete the stress cycle, right? So, um, just another note on the biology of the stress cycle is once you feel activated and threat, once you've experienced a threat, the body has cortisol and glucose and oxygen is all going to your muscles, right? Because it's preparing you to fight or run. And it doesn't know that you're not fighting a saber-toothed tiger. So the muscles are still waiting for you to fight or run. And sometimes laying down in child's pose is not going to complete the stress cycle for you in that moment. You actually have to do something that's going to get your heart rate up and signal to your body that you are safe now. And that's why it's so important to break that sweat and to release and to get those endorphins into your body and to release the cortisol. So, but again, if you notice the frame that I used, it's not it's not sort of these like sort of arbitrary goals. It's not the what that I'm trying to solve for. It's the why to complete the stress cycle, not just to hit the gym. But again, hitting the gym is great for completing the stress cycle. And if that is something that is going to be supportive for building that energy and resiliency for you in 2025, go get it, go after it. And then so mindful movement is very important. So finally, um, winding down in an appropriate way. So being intentional about your evening wind down. End your day by reflecting on what went well. Celebrate your small wins. This primes your brain to rest and recharge for tomorrow. So again, the brain likes to solve problems. It likes to try to protect you from threat. And so it's important to bring this mindfulness practice into your wind down and to sort of bookend your day, right? So maybe reflecting on your morning ritual, what you journaled, what your intention was for the day, who you said you wanted to be, how you said you wanted to serve, etc. And then celebrate those wins, like really like threading the needle and acknowledging how you said you wanted to start the day and then how the day ended up. And if the day didn't end up that well, that's also a really beautiful opportunity for you to offer yourself self-compassion. Again, discernment versus judgment, and allowing yourself, offering yourself some grace, and then also, satisfying the brain's need to sort of close the loop on whatever was made you feel confronted or was challenging throughout the day. I mean, you deserve to be acknowledged for what may not have went right, and journal about that. And the funny thing is that it's great to do that in your waking life or moments before you go to bed, because your brain's going to do it anyway when you're sleeping. So the brain actually goes through really complex uh, activity, we'll say. Again, I'm trying to use the right words because I'm not a neuroscientist, but I know a little bit. I know enough to be to make trouble, right? So, your brain is going through these really complex processing systems, like just like think about a computer when it runs its update. Like your brain is doing that while it's sleeping, and it's trying to uh, figure out how to prevent if something negative happens, it's trying to figure out how to prevent that from happening again. Or if, oh my goodness, the brain loves certainty, so if there's a loop that still needs to be closed, right, the best thing that you can do to offer yourself is to be able to give yourself some clarity, um, to be able to give yourself some certainty around a particular topic, right? It that in and of itself could change your life, because the brain will continue to spin and spin and spin until that loop gets closed, and it's going to make assumptions where the brain doesn't have data or information to validate itself. It's going to start making assumptions, and it's going to disrupt your sleep. You're going to have less quality sleep. So I really can't emphasize enough just spending like 5 or 10 minutes checking in with yourself, offering yourself some compassion before you go to bed if it wasn't a great day, and just setting your brain up positively for sleep. Again, like I said, there's lots of downloads that are happening, and information processing that's happening in your sleep. And you want to have the best sleep possible. So priming yourself for that. Well, I've given you a lot of information to consider, and I'm grateful for the time that you've spent with me. If you come to the end of this podcast, um, thank you so much for sharing this time with me. As we step into this new year, remember, energy isn't just something you have; it's something you cultivate. By practicing mindfulness, setting intentions, and leaning into the power of your positive thoughts, you're creating a foundation for a year filled with purpose and possibility. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I look forward to seeing you again in the next episode. If you found today's episode helpful, please share it with someone who might also need a little inspiration or to feel energized in the new year. And as always, take care of yourself because you matter.